10 reasons the Star Trek universe was the first Matrix. Number 10. The Architect's Speech. In The Matrix Reloaded, Neo meets the Architect, the program who designed the Matrix. The Architect tells Neo that there have been several matrices before the current ones. In that speech, the Architect touches upon a concept which is never mentioned again in the trilogy, the first Matrix. So says the Architect, the first Matrix I designed was quite naturally perfect. It was a work of art, flawless, sublime, a triumph equalled only by its monumental failure. The inevitability of its doom is apparent to me now as a consequence of the imperfection inherent in every human being. Thus, I redesigned it based on your history to more accurately reflect the varying grotesqueries of your nature. However, I was again frustrated by failure. I have since come to understand that the answer eluded me because it required a lesser mind, or perhaps a mind less bound by the parameters of perfection. The Architect alludes to a perfect world in which everyone's needs were met all the time. This is a world so perfect that you would immediately try to wake up from it. This sounds an awful lot like the Star Trek utopia. Number 9. Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future. Gene Roddenberry had a vision for the future with the original Star Trek series. Star Trek gave us a world in which prejudice and money were things of the past. There was no more war on Earth. Man was free to explore his or her own place in the universe. In Roddenberry's vision, all human races could work with alien races towards a higher goal. Beautiful, right? Well, Agent Smith mentions the terrible effects of the first Matrix in the first movie. The first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world, where none suffered, where everyone would be happy, he said. It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming knowledge to describe your perfect world, but I believe that, as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering, so the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake from, which is why the Matrix was redesigned to this. Star Trek showed us a vision of mankind which was almost too perfect. If you suddenly woke up in the world of Star Trek, you might well think you were in a dream world. This is exactly the type of scenario described by Agent Smith and the Architect in the Matrix Trilogy. Number 8. The time frame set by Morpheus. Morpheus explains to Neo that the Matrix is a world set in virtual reality. He then states that he does not know the exact year in which they are. It might be 2199, it might be later, but nobody knows for sure. The year 2199 would put the world of the Matrix on the precipice of the 23rd century. This is, coincidentally, the same century in which the Star Trek universe takes place. This would make some sense. The machines were trying to create a utopia in which humans won the war. Naturally, the humans knew they had fought the machine war. The machines could not erase that from their collective conscious. They used their own supposed defeat to show humans a perfect world after the humans had won. This world of the first Matrix would have been set in the 23rd century. Number 7. The Menagerie. The Menagerie was a two-part episode of the original Star Trek series. Its plot centers around Captain Christopher Pike, captured by a race called the Talosians. The Talosians used the power of illusion on Captain Pike in order to make him stay on their planet, Talos 4. The Talosians concluded that the human mind would resist a perceived prison environment, no matter how pleasant it may seem. If the Star Trek universe was an early attempt at a Matrix, the Talosians would represent a program whose purpose it was to fine-tune the program. The Talosian program's goal would be to make the human mind accepting of its own captivity through illusion. Number 6. The first one. Spock represents the anomaly of the One. Spock was born to a human mother and a Vulcan father. This means Spock is being of cold logic, but also has a human side. This makes Spock capable of emotions. The Architect admits that the One has a code inside of him which must be returned to the Source. When Spock sacrificed himself to stop Khan, he passed on his Katra, which represented his brain patterns, to Leonard McCoy. Katra could be an easy analogy to the code that the Architect was referring to. Spock's body was put in a tube, which was then shot to the planet Genesis. Spock's body later regenerated in much the same way Neo wakes up from his death. This waking up would be seen as an essential part of becoming the One. Number 5. The Nexus. In the Star Trek Matrix universe, the Nexus, a ribbon in space in which anything that you imagine suddenly becomes reality, would be classically referred to as a glitch. Whoopi Goldberg's character, Guinan, says that it is pure joy to be inside of the Nexus. In short, the Nexus is a glitch in the Matrix's programming code that allows you to completely control your surroundings. The Nexus allowed its inhabitants complete control of the Matrix. In future versions of the Matrix, the Nexus would only be accessible through a series of keys, locks, and backdoors. It is also probably not a coincidence that the physical representation of the Nexus looks like a scorched sky. The truly interesting part is that Guinan always seems to be inside the Nexus. Guinan is also a woman who seems to provide wise counsel as well as delicious refreshment. It would be easy to refer to Guinan as something of an oracle. Number 4. The holodeck. The holodeck was first introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation. In it, your entire surroundings, as well as the people you encounter, are all constructs of a computer program. If you were to design a Matrix, the inclusion of a holodeck would be absolute genius. Why would you think you were in a virtual reality simulation if you could create one? It would be hard for the brain to fathom that it was permanently trapped in an artificial simulation. This line of thinking has led some to believe that Zion in the Matrix was an artificial construct as well. This theory is known as the Matrix in a Matrix theory. The holodeck is a perfect example of a matrix within a matrix. Number 3. Artificial life forms. Have you ever noticed how artificial intelligence is really helpful in the Star Trek universe? Data is a noble wonder of technology who genuinely wants to be more human. Data resists being given human skin by the Borg Queen and even gives his life for his human captain. Meanwhile, the Doctor aboard Voyager is a hologram dedicated to helping humans. It even once created a hologram family for itself. The point is that artificial intelligence is almost always seen as non-threatening in Star Trek. There are exceptions though, like the evil emotional android Lore, who seems to prove that artificial evil intelligence is an aberration. There is even some evidence that a holodeck program can become sentient. The program of the fictional Dr. Moriarty successfully lobbies to be allowed to live in the Next Generation episode Elementary Dear Data. Through Moriarty, the machines that control the Matrix seem to be arguing eloquently that they have sentience as well as a right to exist. Number 2. The Borg virus. Agent Smith spells out his problems with humans to Morpheus in the virus speech. The ironic part is that Smith himself would self-replicate through the Matrix and then remake it in his own image. The Matrix is not above viruses, and Agent Smith was supposed to protect against them before actually becoming one himself. The first Matrix would have virus problems as well, and in fact would have even bigger problems than its 7th variation. The first virus in the Matrix may well have been the Borg. The Borg's mantra seems to be the words of a virus come to life. We are the Borg. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. Everything the Borg assimilated was outside of the Federation's control, and everything that Agent Smith assimilated was outside of the Matrix's control. This is how Smith became a threat to the Machine City. The assimilated, in both cases, could be brought back at great price. Number 1. The Second Matrix. Agent Smith once said that entire crops of people were lost during the disaster that was the first Matrix. The architects later stated that the One would be allowed to choose people to help reform the human world. Meanwhile, the 2009 Star Trek reboot sees the planet Vulcan destroyed, along with an elder Spock being sent back in time to help his younger self choose a crew for his new enterprise. The destruction of Vulcan would seem to be consistent with crops of people being lost. The fact that the people lost were largely of Spock's race would also seem to expose the problems in the first Matrix. Star Trek Into Darkness also seems to bring the conflict to Earth much faster than the earlier storyline. The program Khan seems specifically designed to satisfy the human need for superiority as well as conflict. You can actually see the attempt by programmers to correct past perceived mistakes, otherwise known as the birth of the second Matrix. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button in the top right. Our channel has loads of other awesome videos just like this.